Curtain Call, our live broadcast about theater, all things theater, from the page to the stage, from the players to the playhouses. We cover the stories that bring you the stories on the stage. And believe me, there are quite a few stories to be told in theater. It's not just about the stage, it's about the people behind stage, it's about the people in the wings, it's about you, the audience, enjoying our culture from the stage. And today we are blessed to have with us Clifford Sykes, a playwright, an actor, a singer, a teacher, an historian, one of the most well-rounded persons I know. And he is going to talk all about his experience in the theater. We're going to learn all about the new McCree Theater, uh, and how we're going to even learn about the old McCree Theater and everything that the McCree Theater has to offer. The area of Flint, Michigan. The McCree Theater is located in Flint, Michigan. And as you know, when we're doing theater, we want to cover everywhere across this country. And believe me, before we're done, we are going to get um, coverage and stories from all parts of the United States of America. And we've covered quite a bit about Detroit. We got a lot more to do about Detroit. But today we're going to talk about Flint. We're going to talk about Cliff, and we're going to talk about his experiences in theater. Welcome, Cliff, to Curtain Call.
Well, thanks for having me, Robert. I'm glad to be here and glad to be one of your guests on this blog.
Oh, great, great,
Yeah.
great, great. So you have a rich and long history in theater, and we've done at least one thing together.
Hmm.
And your history in the city of Detroit, I've known you for quite some time, even before we did the theater. The Sam Cooke, which we talked about quite extensively last week. Cliff was in Sam Cooke.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, so why don't you give us your history, your story? Let's just start right there, and then we'll just take it as it comes.
Wow. Okay. Well, my theater experience began in Kansas City, Missouri, where I grew up, was born and raised. And in the sixth grade,
Okay.
we did a watered down version of Les Miserables. And I played Jean Valjean.
Okay.
Went got 20 years for stealing a loaf of bread.
Okay, that's
And
quite a start doing Les
yeah,
Miserables.
yeah, that was my really introduction into the theater.
Yeah.
Other than in church, doing the Christmas programs and the Easter programs.
Hmm.
But Les Miserables was my real first theater experience. And then high school, we did a couple of plays. One I remember called the Tramps Convention.
Okay.
That was fun. And undergrad school, I had a great opportunity to study under Dr. Thomas D. Pauley at Lincoln University.
Okay.
And that was an amazing experience. Some of those great professors who would do anything for you but demand that you take care of business all the
Hmm.
time. You
Hmm.
know, if we got 5 pages for next rehearsal, you better be close to knowing them.
Right, right. You said his name was Dr.
Thomas D. Pauley.
Thomas D. Parley. Now that's really interesting. Lincoln University is an HBCU,
Yes, sir.
and I studied theater and worked under uh, the well-known, renowned Dr. Thomas E. Polk at
Okay.
Tennessee State,
Right, right.
and he was actually the first black PhD in drama
Mm.
in the United States.
Mm.
And I had the opportunity to work with him and W. Dury Cox. So that HBCU theater experience is rich
Right.
and like you said, the training is top of the line.
We actually, our old theater at Lincoln University
Hmm.
actually had a slanted stage. When
Okay.
you say upstage,
Hmm.
you literally,
Went
kind of
upstage.
incline or downstage, right?
Hmm.
But Dr. Polly was one of those legendary black professors at HBCU.
Right.
And then at So I taught for a few years, but then I went back to school. So
Mm-hmm.
I found uh, fellowship, a teaching fellowship at the University of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And when I went to Pittsburgh, it was at first it was like culture shock. I'm like, where are the black people? Where are the black people?
Mm-hmm.
But I finally went over to the Black Student Union, and there was the office of Dr. Vernell Lilly,
Okay.
um, and the Kuntu Repertory Theater.
Okay.
And Dr. Lilly was another one who took us to, we performed at the Fringe Fest in London, in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
We performed on the Essence Jazz Festival.
Okay.
She took us to South Africa.
Mm.
You know, one of those professors who she would tell the university, "This is what I want,"
Mm-hmm.
and they gave it to her.
Right. There's nothing that beats an education that makes an education what it is than exposure.
Exactly.
A professor, a teacher, a mentor, anyone who takes you and exposes you to things that you wouldn't find in your community, in your neighborhood, on your block.
Right.
Um, that's a learning experience.
Mhm.
Some of the best education you're going to get is exposure. You know.
Absolutely. And then, coming to Detroit, I did a few independent plays,
Mm-hmm.
and I had the wonderful, gosh, I had the wonderful opportunity of working with Ron Milner
Okay.
when he did Inner City Miracle.
Okay.
It was the life story of Judge Mathis.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is, I had a similar experience growing up in Kansas City,
Okay.
where a judge looked down at me one time when I was 14,
Mm.
said, Kansas City's not big enough for you and everybody else. He said, so you got to go.
Oh my goodness.
So I went to Father Flanagan's Boys Town,
Mm-hmm.
where I was in theater there. Although I was always music was always my field,
Mm-hmm.
but when we did the Judge Mathis story, Inner City Miracle, I played the judge
Okay.
who gave Judge Mathis his second chance.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
Judge told Mathis, he said, "Look, I'm gonna give you 6 months to get a GED and get yourself together, or I'm gonna send you away for a long time."
Mm.
And so Mathis got his life together, went to law school,
Right.
and of course, the rest is history.
Right. I was just wondering because I know you know my wife, and
Yeah.
she had worked with Judge Mathis when he was a teen
Hmm.
through the inner city sub center.
Right.
Right. And I just wondered was
I think that was before I got there.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I did meet Jackie while I was there. I
Right.
was teaching music after school.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And
Small world.
yeah, yeah. But that was, and then my next major experience was working with the great Robert Douglas on
Okay.
the life of Sam,
Okay.
major play on a major musical figure of Black history. A lot of people don't know that Sam was the first to own his masters
Mm-hmm.
and did his own publishing.
Mm.
And some of us believe that
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit last week.
right, right.
So when did you move to Detroit?
Permanently in 70 or 71.
Okay.
Um, I had been, because I sang in the Lincoln University choir.
Mm-hmm.
Every spring we would go on a tour
Mm-hmm.
to raise money. Like the what was the group out of Alabama? Was it the
Rush
the
was
singers? The singers,
that was a group a college group that came out of
right,
no, that was out of Tupelo, Mississippi. That was Rush College.
right,
I know
right,
they would travel and sing, and I know Hampton is actually coming through here sometime
right.
soon.
So we, my first, I had never been anywhere other than Kansas City and Arkansas, which is
Mm-hmm.
where my grandparents were from.
Okay.
And but with Lincoln University, my first year as a freshman, going on choir tour, we went
Mm-hmm.
to Chicago, several cities in Illinois, Indiana, came to Detroit, and
Mm-hmm.
then we sang at the World's Fair in New York,
Okay.
in the Missouri Pavilion.
Okay.
But there was something about Detroit that grabbed me and wouldn't let go.
Chocolate City.
Still, I still love Detroit to this minute.
Hmm. Yeah.
So and then, like I was telling my brother earlier, I ran into some people. They took me over to Sylvia Moy.
Hmm.
She heard me play. Said,
Hmm.
okay, so I did a lot of studio work for her. It
Okay.
was another wonderful experience as well.
Okay. What instrument do you play?
I'm basically a drummer,
Okay.
but going to school to be a band director,
Hmm.
you have to demonstrate basic skills on pretty much all of the family of instruments.
Hmm. Right.
Trumpet, the
Right.
brass family,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, and by the way, speaking of bands, you don't have to gloat, but the first band that kicked our butts, TSU.
Yeah. Who you rooting for? Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first. We had the first, excuse me, one of the first classics.
Hmm.
Lincoln University and Tennessee State. It was called A Tale of Two Tigers,
Okay.
and we had a game in Bush Stadium in St. Louis.
Okay.
So we went out and did our little thing, played, and we came down. Tennessee State was sitting around chilling on the sideline,
Aristocrats.
and then the drum major came out and said, "Tweet, tweet." It looked like all 150 of them just stood up,
Mm-hmm.
went out there, and just blazed the field.
I know this is about theater, y'all, but you can't beat that black college experience, and
Absolutely.
you definitely can't beat a black college game, football game, halftime show with
Hmm.
those bands. And TSU, yeah, Lincoln, Southern, Jackson State, Grambling,
All of
Florida
them.
A&M,
Mhm.
North Carolina A&T, how they're all excellent. But of
Right.
course, the aristocrats are
Mm.
the best in the
and
land.
and they
I
all
just
have
have to say that the aristocratic bands is the best marching band in the land.
and they have and all of those schools you named have great theater
They
programs.
do. They do.
Yes, sir.
Florida A&M, in fact, on we had an ongoing pretty much theater competition with Florida A&M
Hmm.
because Shep Edmondson, that was his name, and Dr. Poe had they were contemporaries.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, we even did one of his plays. I was in one of his Shep Edmondson's plays that we did at Tennessee State.
Hmm.
So yeah, the quality of education you get, particularly in the arts and culture, from an HBCU is something special.
Hmm.
It's a different world. It is a different world,
Right.
and like the song that's so popular right now by Kendrick Lamar, "They
Hmm.
Not Like Us."
Right.
That's a fact when it comes to an HBCU. They not like
Absolutely.
us. It's just not
Absolutely.
like
And
we can't duplicate that.
the interesting thing, since we're on that, is that at Lincoln University, I struggled hard to make my little B's and C's and
Mm-hmm.
a couple of other grades
Mm-hmm.
here and there. And it was difficult, but the thing was, all of my professors said, Mr. Sykes, get to class on time, make an honest effort to do your work, and stay, keep in contact, and don't worry about it,
Mm-hmm.
which I did. So when I went to the University of Wisconsin to get my master's, I was scared to death. I mean, this is a Big Ten school,
Mm-hmm.
and it's gonna be hard trying to get a master's degree. And come to find out, all the work that I had for my master's degree, I had had at Lincoln as a junior.
Mm-hmm.
So those college professors pushed us way past, so that knowing that when I went to the a bigger school,
Mm-hmm.
the challenge was going to be there, but it was pretty easy for me.
It's a part of, again, this is theater, but we're talking history now,
Right.
and one of the things when I grew up and when you grew up, one of the things because I went to a segregated high school uh, in Nashville, and we were always told we got to do twice as much to get half as much, so
Right.
we had to be two times better
Right.
than them just to be on a level to compete with
Yes,
them.
sir.
And so they always drove that in us, and they always made sure we were prepared.
Right.
And same thing at Tennessee State. They made sure we were prepared,
Absolutely.
being on time, be disciplined,
Hmm.
uh, doing it the right way.
Right.
And the difference, and because I worked at a couple of PWIs,
Mm-hmm.
and the difference. Now, again, I don't want to get off subject,
Right.
but we are. So, and we just chat.
Right.
Um, the difference is uh, at a HBCU, as a black student, actually at an HBCU, you're just a student.
Mm-hmm.
At a PWI, you're a black student.
Mm-hmm.
At
Right.
a HBCU, you get nurtured.
You get nurtured. Yes, sir.
At a PWI, a lot of times the professors in the classroom are going to challenge your self-esteem and your self-confidence on a
Mm-hmm.
daily basis.
Right.
But again, that's off
Right.
topic.
Right.
You're watching WJZZ Cool TV Curtain Call coming to you live, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and all other streaming platforms. Feel free to like us, thumbs up, comment in the comment sections. But you're watching Curtain Call on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest TV station in the world. Let's get back on subject. I know we
Yes, sir.
we
Yes, sir.
we've been all over the place here.
Uh,
Back to your theater experience.
right.
Uh, um,
Right. So, in the when once I moved to Flint,
mm-hmm,
I looked around for a while again, like where's the community, where's the culture,
mm-hmm,
what's going, so I came across an audition
mm-hmm.
for the McCree Theater, and they were doing um, August Wilson's Two Trains Running.
Okay,
So I auditioned and got really one of the starring roles
okay,
of Lee, who owned the restaurant where most of the play took place.
mm-hmm.
And as you know, all of August Wilson's plays are about the black community in Pittsburgh.
Right, right,
And
and they come in decades.
right, right. And so after that, I'm like, oh, back to my theater, get my
Mm-hmm,
theater legs back.
mm-hmm.
And so that they had a great run. And at that time, of course, McCree was still moving around because we didn't have our own space,
Mm-hmm.
which we do now. But I did Two Trains Running, and then after that, we've done the Motown Story. We've done one called those gorgeous, glorious girl groups,
Mm-hmm.
which we're getting ready to do again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've done the Mary Wells story. We did the what's her name? At last, my love.
Etta
Etta
James.
James. We did
Etta
Etta
James.
James story. So we did um, the other girl story that uh, Jamie Foxx played in.
Ray.
No, not Ray, but the about the girls group. It was
Ray.
loosely based on the Supremes.
The Dream Girls.
Dream Girls. We've done
Dream
that.
Girls. Right.
So we've done a lot of. And then our executive director Charles Winfrey writes a lot of our plays because we
Okay.
can't afford the rent,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that often, and we do 3 or sometimes 4 productions a year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we've just finished VJ Records, which is a story of a black record company slightly before Motown,
Mm-hmm.
um, where a husband and wife team, Jimmy Brackens and his wife Vivian. Vivian was a DJ on the radio, but she
Mm-hmm.
always wanted to say, I don't want to just be on the radio, I want to make records too.
Mm-hmm.
So they went to a talent show either in Gary or Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and saw this group. Said we gotta record them
Mm-hmm.
because they got something going on. So they literally pawned some of their jewelry for $500
Mm-hmm.
and recorded this group that became the Spaniels.
Okay.
Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. That group, right? Jerry Butler was on that label. The Duke of Earl, Gene McDaniels
Gene
was on
Chandler.
that. Gene Chandler.
Yeah,
Well,
the
he
Duke of.
changed it. His name was McDaniels.
Oh, okay. I know
Right.
that.
His name was Gene McDaniels,
Hmm.
but he changed it because he said he liked uh, Jeff Chandler, the actor.
Okay,
Right. So
that's a
he
little
changed
bit
his
of tidbit history that I
right.
didn't
So
know.
he changed
I
his name
love
to
Gene Chandler.
right, right.
Yeah.
So
We're telling our age, Doctor.
so yeah, we just finished VJ Records. Uh, and earlier, our first play for this season was the Soul of Mary Wells.
Okay.
That was another great show.
Hmm.
Um, and when we did the Etta James story,
Hmm.
I actually played Etta James's brother,
Okay.
uh, who had passed away. So I actually played a apparition.
Oh,
That
okay.
was interesting. I had a total silver sequin hat,
Hmm.
shirt, jacket, pants, everything,
Hmm.
and I was able to come up. See his Etta James's two sons, who wound up playing in her band later when they got old enough.
Hmm.
Um, they were on stage looking at a photo book of their mother's memories, and then Uncle Frank, my character, appeared behind them and said, "Now let me tell you about your mother."
Okay.
And so I was able to, much like Michael White's,
Hmm.
love to be the narrator.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that the Mary Wells story, and uh, for our main stage productions. And then we also have a youth component
Okay.
where we teach youth age 5 to 17. It was
Hmm.
13, but when we did the Lion King Jr., we pushed the age up to 17 because
Okay.
it took a lot more than the little kids could do.
Hmm.
So we we have a great staff. Our executive director is Charles Winfrey.
Hmm.
I think his sister is in the city hall somewhere here. Uh,
Janice Whipper.
yes,
Okay, I
that's
know
his
Janice.
that's
Well,
his
what?
sister.
Yeah. Yeah.
And um, uh, Pat
We know
Enright.
Janice well. She's a good
Yeah,
friend of ours.
yeah, okay, good.
Yeah.
That's a nice connection.
Yeah.
Um, the Pat Enright is our artistic director, and
Hmm.
she just directed these last two or three plays. Um, Pat Hill is our media director and our costume director. She makes sure that when we do a play that we're dressed appropriately
Hmm.
for that time period.
Hmm.
And then Miss, uh, oh my goodness, um,
I can't hear.
Sharon Brooks
Okay.
is our she does all the hair, wigs. When we get
Hmm.
ready for a play, you see a table full of wigs with people's name on them. This is your
Hmm.
wig for first act. This is your wig for second act.
Hmm.
uh,
You can't have theater without a production staff.
oh,
You can't.
absolutely.
You just can't do it.
Mhm.
You think they have staffs for movies and that sort of thing. For theater, you've got to have a complete staff with costuming, audio, lights,
Right.
uh, makeup, hair and makeup,
Mhm.
uh, a full staff.
Right. And we are blessed enough to have that
Hmm.
at McCree, because we do have people specifically to do lights,
Hmm.
audio. We just brought on a beautiful young sister to do makeup, and she's
Hmm.
very good at it. Her job description is she does corporate makeup.
Corporate makeup. Okay.
So when
Hmm.
people do things, if they gonna appear on a radio or TV show, and some she hooks them up.
Hmm.
Um, and we have our building engineer builds our sets.
Hmm.
So we have a really great
Yeah,
staff
they
that
didn't
works
even
together.
mention the construction staff that it
Hmm.
takes to build sets.
Right.
We were over at the Detroit Rep. I went down and looked at the shop where they
Mm-hmm.
built them.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee State, we built our own sets right there backstage.
Right.
We had a
Absolutely.
big wide area,
Right.
construction area, and we had a big storage area where the flats would be
Flats.
slid into.
Right.
It's a profession unto itself,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes everything from knowing how to do carpentry,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the works. I remember one time we did a raising in the sun,
Mm-hmm.
and we were able to set up the kitchen with running water.
Okay.
Yeah, with running
Yeah.
water. So
Yeah.
was even plumbing involved.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, theater is all encompassing because it's all slice of life. It's all about life.
Right. Right.
So go ahead and tell us more about the McCree.
Yeah.
Um,
So McCree Theater um, is now celebrating 53 years.
53
And
years.
for the first time, the last 3 years, we Charles Winfrey was able to negotiate and get this building, this church that was the congregation was leaving or whatever,
Hmm.
and so he was able to get it. I think he was negotiating on another deal for another building, and which was much larger cost.
Hmm.
But then he got word of the building we have now
Hmm.
for a third of what he was negotiating with the other place,
Okay.
and he jumped on it.
Divine intervention.
Then he was right, and then he was able to get several grants for upkeep and for renovation,
Hmm.
and bought some theater seats, some really comfortable blue velvet
Hmm.
on the seats. Downstairs, we can seat, I think, 240, and upstairs, I think another 100 and a quarter, or something to that nature. Um, uh,
That's a nice size house.
right.
That's a house where you can do theater on the stage, and the audience can see every bit of the emotions and the acting and
Hmm.
the skills that the actors bring us to the stage. We did and I mentioned this I think last week. We did Sam Cooke at the music hall. We did Family Love at the music hall. But what gets lost in a hall that size
Hmm.
is the subtlety of the acting,
Hmm.
the facial expressions, the subtle movements that brings a character to life and gives that character depth can get lost on a big stage. So I
Right.
personally in theater prefer a smaller house,
Hmm.
400 or 500 seats.
Right.
Uh, uh,
Like the Charles Wright.
right, the
It's a
Charles
nice
Wright
hall.
the Northwest Activity Center,
Northwest. Right.
the gym, small intimate houses. A good house is for me. It's 1,100 seats, but the Ford Theater in Dearborn,
Hmm.
the way it's structured, you get that good feel close to the stage
Hmm.
feeling. Um, let me do a station ID. You're
Hmm.
watching Curtain Call on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest TV station in the world. Please comment, like us. We hope that you wouldn't dislike us, but let us know that you're watching and enjoying. Make comments, make suggestions. Let us know what you think about Curtain Call, WJZZ Cool TV. So again, you're watching Curtain Call on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest TV station in the world. I was reading a little bit about the McCree Theater,
Hmm.
um, and I understand that it was developed with a philosophy and an African centered, African American cultural centered philosophy. Can you
Right.
go into that a little bit? Talk about that.
Yes, sir. Our motto at the New McCree Theater is telling the African American story in the African American voice.
Okay.
And as I'm sure you know as well as anybody, sometimes our stories come off, you know. As a matter of fact, the book called, oh gosh, um, there's a book out by Metro Goldwyn Mayer
Mm-hmm.
that talks about the whole image of blacks on TV
Mm-hmm.
that was purposely done, intentionally done, and kept. the pimp and the prostitute and or
Stereotype.
or the yeah or the rastas,
Mm-hmm. Step and
slow
fetch it.
Stephen Fetchit.
Right.
Although we found out later Stephen Fetchit was filthy rich. He
Right.
made a
Making money.
he made a
He,
lot of
he
money acting crazy.
right.
I think they said he was one of the first to have his own plane.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but the philosophy of the McCree Theater is that we tell our stories in our voice, the way we want, the way we lived it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why, again, our ownership of our own space is so important.
Mm-hmm.
That we can tell our stories the way we tell it,
Right.
and not have to not have to look get our story from ABC, CBS, or somebody else who came
Mm-hmm.
and interviewed us, then went and wrote a story, and then try to sell it back to us.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that and as I was mentioning earlier about my plays, that ties into this whole concept of critical race theory now,
Mm-hmm.
where 25 states in the United States have either reduced or eliminated Black studies.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
And then it's not just the black studies, it's black everything.
right,
It's like they're trying to blot us out of American history,
like,
and you can't tell the story of America without
without
it
us,
including black people. There is no
absolutely,
history of America
right,
without black people.
right,
Period.
right.
No history whatsoever of America without black people.
And the interesting thing, a lot of people don't realize is that we were here long before the slave ships came. And just a little interesting fact, if you take Khalifa, Khalifa
Mm-hmm.
was an African princess who the state of California is named after.
Mm-hmm.
Cali,
Oh,
and it sounds like your son's name
remember
too.
Kali is his name.
Right,
Kali. Kali.
right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but the state of California is actually named after an African princess.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's some history I didn't know.
Hmm. So, yeah, we have to tell our own stories. And the more we begin to document and write about our stories,
Mm-hmm.
then we own that and not have to go to some major media for it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our philosophy in all of the plays. For instance, one of the plays that Charles Winfrey wrote was The Saints of St. John Street.
Okay.
And in Flint, St. John Street was the black bottom, like the
Okay.
black bottom of
Of
Detroit,
Detroit. Okay.
right? And so I played one of there were two elder men um, who lived next door to each other, and we would meet each other on the front porch every day and talk about what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And while we were doing that, one day, uh, one of the wives came out screaming, "They killed him! They killed him! They killed him!" And there was a section in there about Emmett Till,
Okay.
so that was amazing. And Charles wrote where the father, my character, pulled the boys. It revolved around this boys baseball team, young boys baseball team. They'd never won a game,
Mm-hmm.
and so Charles wrote a monologue in there for my character, talking about telling these boys how they have to carry themselves, what they have to do,
Mm-hmm.
and why things are the way they are. And I could never, not one night, could I get through that uh, monologue without getting weak and getting
Mm-hmm.
emotional.
Wow.
It was amazing, and he wrote that.
Okay. I haven't seen any of his work. I might have to get up to Flint.
Oh man,
Jack and I are going to come up there and see one of these shows.
yeah, we need you. We need you to come up and
Okay.
take
So
a
how
look.
long has he been?
Oh, Charles is uh, he's I think he's been there with the McCree Theater about 15, 20 years. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure exactly,
Yeah, I was
but he's
reading what
been
they
there.
called it, the old, what is now the old McCree Theater,
Right.
and then now the new McCree Theater.
Well, that one was just the original was the McCree Theater,
Right.
and which, by the way, is named after the first black mayor of Flint, Floyd McCree.
Okay.
So, and he was very supportive, you know, of the arts.
Mm-hmm.
And so after the heyday years when the McCree Theater was teaching photography,
Mm-hmm.
arts and arts and crafts, and just was really vibing.
Mm-hmm.
Had a dance group, and you know, then some of the money dried up from grants and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So they shut down for a few years. And so when Charles started to bring it back, he says, "Well, we're gonna call it the new McCree
McCree Theater.
Theater."
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So um, you know, that's that history, and that was that. I guess I came in just shortly after they had started coming back.
Okay.
But as I said, we didn't have our own space. We would rent space in the high school auditorium,
Mm-hmm.
the middle school, church, you know, different places.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, of course, 3 years ago we got this our own space,
Mm-hmm.
which is really exciting for me. And by the way, Robert, as you know, I think I started to say earlier, but um, there are only 9 black theaters in the entire U.S. that own their own space
Really?
because we belong to the Black Theater Network.
Okay.
And one of my friends who actually was at the University of Pittsburgh when I was there,
Mm-hmm.
that's her job with the Black Theater Network. She
Okay.
does that research.
Okay.
It's only 9 that own their own space.
Yeah, I'm gonna need some contact information for that.
Oh,
I'd like to maybe do a show featuring and talking about those 9
mm-hmm,
companies that own that space. Can
right.
you give me the name of some of them? I know there's. I've been looking at a company out of Minneapolis, St. Paul. I think
Mm-hmm.
Penumbra.
Penumbra, right. I'm
That
familiar with them.
Penumbra that's doing
Right,
one of Dominic Morosso's plays right
right.
now. I know Caramoo House out of Cleveland,
Mm-hmm.
and
ETA in Chicago,
right,
and there are 2 in Chicago.
okay,
But Joan Abena Brown, ETA, they saved and saved and saved for
mm,
years, and they built theirs.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. And then there's the I don't want to say the Louis Theater, but it's not the Louis Theater. I can't think
Mm-hmm.
of the name of the company now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I would like to. I would like to
Okay, I can.
have that information so that I can and contact some of those companies and get them on. Uh,
There's a black artist group in St. Louis too. Yeah.
okay, okay,
But then again, I'm not sure if they have their own space. I know when the black artist group, when the music was there, they had their own space, like
okay.
the AACM in Chicago.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's easy to find out because, like I said, Sister has done that research.
Okay, yeah, I need to have that information
Mm-hmm.
so that we can cause we want to talk about theater. Uh, we don't want to talk just about black theater, but we definitely want to feature black theater,
Right.
and we want to feature black theater all over the United States of
Mm-hmm.
America. Uh, Again, I've got some connections across the country, and I will be having some of those connections on. I just talked to a young man out of LA that came up under me and hope to get him on as
Right.
well. But there's so much good theater, and to know what's going on in Flint and
Mm-hmm.
to the level, the extent, and the quality of what you're doing up there.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed a lot of it has to do with music, and you guys out there, the audience may think that we talk a lot about because we talked about Sam Cooke last week, and we
Mm-hmm.
talked about Mary Wells and girl groups and VJ records. Uh, it's they cross reference each other. It's intersectional. You can't talk about if you're going to portray black life in America, you can't portray it without the music.
Some music,
You know
right?
what I mean? It's interwoven together. The music, the stage, the theater, the black life. uh, one of the most entertaining things about black theater is the music. You
Absolutely.
know, because our history, we're such a musical people,
Hmm. And
and
we have a tremendous brother keyboard, George Warren, who puts the band together for all of our shows, and our shows have been heavily musical
mm-hmm.
because that's what people come to hear.
Right, right.
You know,
Yeah,
so
all my shows are musicals. You
right,
know, with original music.
right,
Right.
and let me see, we've done. Uh, we if we, for instance, like we're doing our next uh production is the those gorgeous glorious girl groups. I know I'm saying one of those G's.
Mm-hmm.
uh, um, those gorgeous glamorous girl groups is our next production, and so it will be a play based on and featuring all the girl groups from the 50s and 60s, the Shirelles,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the Motown girls, uh, those that were under Phil Spector,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So,
Yeah, the Ronettes.
right,
They were like
uh,
the premier
right,
beginning girl group that opened the door for all the other girl groups.
exactly.
Can't talk about girl groups without the Marvelettes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, who
So,
preceded the Supremes
mm-hmm.
here in Motown.
Right,
So yeah, that's a rich story. Uh,
right. So
I
that,
had a interesting. There was a young lady that was portrayed. That was in the Sam Cooke show,
mm-hmm.
and she looked like Tammy Terrell.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to write a story about Tammy Terrell because her story
Mm-hmm.
on herself is
Oh,
very
yeah,
interesting
yeah,
with
yeah.
Marvin Gaye
Mm-hmm.
and David Ruffin and all of that. That would have
And
been
James Brown.
and that would have been an interesting story to tell.
Uh,
And I still might do that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's so much rich storytelling that can be told on our singing groups and our
Mm-hmm.
musicians.
Right.
Uh,
And and their
and
backstories.
their backstory is what makes
Right,
them so interesting.
right, right.
And interestingly enough, you get a lot of like we call the Sam Cooke play triumphs and tragedies of a
Mm-hmm.
soul singer, a soul
Mm-hmm.
stirrer. Uh, but a lot of their stories include triumphs and end tragically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like
I'm all, you know, I'm a Motown baby, right?
mm-hmm,
And uh to me, to this very moment, there has been nothing to compare with the original
ain't
Temptations.
nothing.
And I keep thinking every now and then about how tragically such a wonderful group
Mm-hmm.
wound up, you know.
Yeah, there's one tragedy after another.
Right,
You
right.
know, I think you start with Paul,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then David, and it's just one tragedy.
Right.
Melvin, Eddie, you
Right,
know, it's
right.
just one tragedy right at the only one that's holding on is Otis,
It's Otis,
and
right.
that's the triumph.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, okay.
that's the
Right,
you know
right.
that's the triumph.
Yeah.
You know, you are watching Curtain Call on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest TV station in the world. Please feel free to like us, comment, let us know you're watching. Tell your friends and family about Curtain Call because we're going to tell you all about theater. Again, Curtain Call on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest TV station in the world. Now,
Mhm.
you mentioned we're going to want you to talk about your summer camp. But first, before you talk about your summer camp, tell us about your writing as a playwright for your kids.
Okay.
Talk to us about
Um, you know, uh, I had to go back to how I wrote Clifford's Rap.
that. Okay.
So I was at a when I taught at Kettering, a lot of the families just embraced me because
Mm-hmm.
I had their kids, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
they would invite me to parties, to dinner, everything. I mean, some of them called me Uncle Sykes,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Okay.
And so one particular family that just, you know, if anytime they had anything, somebody called Mr. Sykes. So I was at this party with this family, and they were in the basement. People were playing cards, dancing, you know, just
Mm-hmm.
typical. all family, and I was upstairs at the table feeding my face. I
Mm-hmm.
was eating, but this record came on, and I was like, man, what is that? I had never heard it before. So I went downstairs and I asked the brother, I said, man, what was that you was just playing? He said, oh, you haven't heard that? No. That was Blowfly's rap. And the hook was rap dirty. Mm-mm, 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 rap dirty. And so he went on into, I was like, it was horrible. But the music was slamming.
Mm-hmm.
But the words and the lyrics, I was like, oh man. So they were like, who you is that too hot for you? I said, no, I heard all that. I just don't want to hear that in my ear every other word,
Mm-hmm.
the cursing and so after that, I was on a Greyhound bus going back to school,
Mm-hmm.
and I was sitting up. There was an elderly sister sitting next to me, the first two seats, as soon as you walk up on the bus,
Mm-hmm.
and I think she finally nodded off because she was, young man, how are you? Where you go? Oh, you in school? Yes, ma'am. So after a while, I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, these words start going through my head. Brothers and sisters gather around me. I want to take a little bit of your time. I know you heard all the records with raps, but let me tell you about mine.
Okay.
I was like, I pulled out my little pad and started writing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Put it down. I know you've heard Grandmaster Flash, Curtis Blow, and Two Live Crew, but I'm sick of hearing that silly mess. I want to say something positive to you. I was like,
Okay, write that down.
that went on for about an hour and a half, Robert.
Okay.
I did not write that. It wrote me.
Okay.
That
Mm-hmm.
inspiration. It just,
Mm-hmm.
so I said that to say, to answer your question about the plays that I write, I didn't, I had no intention of writing a play.
Mm-hmm.
But I was sitting at home one evening thinking about, because I'm over the youth program.
Mm-hmm.
I said, wow, what can we do? And so I came up with uh, I came up with the uh, black, um, the Nina Simone.
Young, gifted, and black.
Young, I came up with Young, Gifted, and Black.
Mm-hmm.
And so the story was the kids all had to do a Black History report,
Okay.
and I gave them all an actual little slip with
Mm-hmm.
some Black inventors' name, the washing machine, the toilet,
Mm-hmm.
all these things that Black people have invented.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end of the class, the teacher said, okay, it's time for your test.
Mm-hmm.
Test? Oh, no, you didn't tell us. And so they line up. All right, line up. Let me hear what you got. So and so and so and so invented the iron. So and so and so and so at the end of the test. It,
Uh,
it really went over well. So that inspired me
mm-hmm.
to keep writing to teach our children Black history.
Okay. Talk about your summer workshop for your kids, and let everybody in Flint know what they can experience from your summer workshop for youth and children.
This past summer of 2024, we did the actual Broadway version of The Lion King Jr.
Okay.
And we take youth in our summer workshops from
Mm-hmm.
age 5 to 17.
Okay.
And they have fun. They do a lot of work. I tend to keep them focused. We don't
Mm-hmm.
have time for fun. We only got 6 weeks.
Right.
Saturday,
Right.
we only have them once a week for 6 weeks. And so I say, we got to focus, 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 focus.
Mm-hmm.
And so this coming uh, uh, July 2025,
Mm-hmm.
we'll be doing the actual Broadway version of The Wiz.
Okay.
And so we take kids again from age 5 to 17.
Mm-hmm.
And during the day, when we have them on Saturdays from 10 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon,
Mm-hmm.
we feed them lunch and a snack. And during the day, they rotate between a dance class, a vocal music class, and a theater class.
Okay.
And then the last hour and a half of the day, they all go into the auditorium to work on whatever their whatever the play is,
Okay.
so that we get them. And we have a good staff. My staff, Miss Alina Oliver, who teaches theater,
Mm-hmm.
Sharita Swanigan teaches dance. She's really good.
Mm-hmm.
And the vocal music teacher is Mr. Glenn Holcomb, who
Mm-hmm.
teaches at the Flint Institute of Arts.
Okay.
So we have really a great, and each of the teachers have an assistant.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a really great staff.
Okay. So, audience, we want you to look for the new McCree Theater in Flint, Michigan. They're doing great work on the stage, on the main stage, and educating our young people in the theater arts and the performing arts. You've been watching Curtain Call. We'll want you to tune in next week. We want to thank you, Clifford Sykes, for coming down all the way from Flint and sharing your time with us today and telling us all about the McCree Theater.
And before we go,
Uh-huh.
uh, you gotta sign my book, Robert.
Okay. All right. He's got the book, The Life of Sam.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Sure do.
So thank you, Cliff, and that's Curtain Call. We'll see you next week.
And that's a wrap. Yeah.
All right.
Uh,
Over here on
it
this,
don't it, wherever you feel to.
I can't hardly write in cursive
Okay, yeah. Finally, some teachers are beginning to teach it again because our kids, cursive, what's that?